All right. Hi. Good morning. Welcome to the channel. My name is Niladri Mukherjee, and I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. I practice here in Guelph, Ontario. So today we are going to talk about the Atlantic Immigration Program, which used to be called Atlantic Immigration Pilot Program, and now it is officially being called as Atlantic Immigration Program. So if you see the YouTube banner on this particular live stream, I have taken the screenshot from the official government website, and hence they are now calling it Atlantic Immigration Program. And this is probably one of the most famous, if you will, program after maybe Express Entry System that was been launched by the government of Canada. That program ran for a couple of years, and after that, it was converted into a permanent program as latest as this month. So we all know what is it. We all know the nitty gritties of the program, but I would just give a complete overview of the program in the shortest way possible, give you the download, and talk about a couple of tips and tricks that I think you can possibly apply to enhance your chances, and we can take it from there. So, what is it? So, the Atlantic Immigration Program is catering to the labor shortages, the skilled labor shortages of the Atlantic Canada. What is Atlantic Canada? Atlantic Canada are the four provinces in the east of Canada, which are New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, PEI, and Newfoundland and Labrador. Now, we all know that majority of the immigrants, if not all the immigrants, want to stay either in Toronto or Montreal or Vancouver or Alberta, in those areas where they already have their friends, already have their family, or like some kind of connections to the province. And obviously, those provinces are more popular. The problem happens is that not many people that are coming to Canada through express entry system or otherwise want to go to the Atlantic provinces, right? And hence the government has come up with this program, ran for a while, and now it's a permanent program to enhance, to basically help the employers to get resources into their labor force, to add skilled resources into the labor force. And there is no denying of the fact that immigrants work way harder because they have the inclination to strive up the ladder, to move up the ladder. They are leaving everything, they're coming to a new country. So the hunger that we have as immigrants are probably not comparable with the Canadian that is born and raised here, because the person, I would not say take things for granted, but we obviously appreciate those things way more than what a born and brought up Canadian would otherwise, right? So again, so the government knows that not many people goes to those provinces, and hence this program came into picture. The requirement of the program are otherwise quite simple and way less complicated, if you will, as compared to an express entry system. For example, the language score requirement is very, very low. The qualification requirement is very, very low. You do not really have to put a lot of money. You really do not have to show a lot of money as a settlement fund. The settlement fund requirement is also very low. But the crux of the program is that you have to get a job offer from one of the designated employers in Atlantic Canada, and then that employer should be ready to support your immigration. So that does not mean that they're supporting you with the help of LMIA, but the job offer has to be backed by an endorsement letter from a province, and everything has to be supported by that employer, because your immigration or your temporary residence is being driven by with the help of that job offer only. And this is where the exact crux come in, and this is where exactly all the immigration frauds take place. This is where people feel desperate and they are ready to pay money for the job offer, and knowingly or unknowingly they fall victim of those immigration scams that have been running here in Canada for a long time. And I could tell you from my experience is that no scams, like the number of scams that really happen in Atlantic immigration program, is probably the highest. Um, as compared to any other immigration program, because there is a requirement of job offer, and once you get the job offer, the otherwise requirements are very, very nominal, right? So that's about the crux of the program. That's about, I would say, in a nutshell, that's what the program is all about. So how then you get a job offer. I would imagine that you will not find it difficult to score maybe CLB4 or CLB5 in IELTS. I would imagine that you will not find it that difficult to prove that you have enough money in your bank account in the form of your settlement funds, because the requirements are very, very low as compared to a federal express entry system, or even as compared to many of the PNPs, all the PNPs, right? But the problem, as I said, or the crux of the program, as I've said, is a job offers. And how do you go about it? The easiest way to do that process, to handle this process, is to come to Canada and meet those employers. Not easiest, I will say technically correct process. Pardon my, my apologies for using the term easiest. It's not easiest. Coming to Canada and meet the employers, right? The second process is to send obviously CVs, your resumes, while you're outside Canada. The problem that really happens is that when the employer, if you have to think from an employer perspective as well, when an employer got designated, for example, he or she may not have an idea as to the amount of applications that he would receive, job applications that he would receive. And what really happened was that people from all around the world have started bombarding them with their CVs, right? That is where the real problem came, and that is exactly where they said that, what, I'm really not equipped enough to handle that many job applications on my own, and most of this time I do not even know how these people are. A Canadian work atmosphere is very different. If you're coming from outside Canada, you will find a drastically different place to work in terms of your work atmosphere, in terms of your colleagues, in terms of the requirement of the soft skill that is being paramount here in Canada as compared to many other countries in the world, including that of the United States, right? So which is why there is an inhibition, which is why there is an hesitancy amongst the employer to hire foreign resources. Even though I could tell you is that, and I have said it in my video, is that once you get a job offer, the after job offer process for AIPP is really not that difficult, because there is no requirement of LMIA. You have to work with a settlement plan. That's not very difficult to work on. You have to get an endorsement letter. That's a technical process. You have to apply for your work permit if your employer wants you to join to them like as soon as possible without waiting for your PR. And eventually, obviously, you will apply for your PR within 90 days. So if you see, the after job offer process is not very difficult. So it is the job offer that is the crux of the whole story, right? So how to tackle the job offer thing? My suggestion to you would be apply for a visit visa and come to Canada, meet those employers. Now, it's easier said than done. Applying for a visit visa doesn't mean that you will get the visa. Obviously, the rejection rate of visit visas is very high in Canada, irrespective of the country you apply from, irrespective of your travel history. And I could not stress enough that a travel history have no legal impact on your visa decision here in Canada. People often mistakenly think that I have traveled to US, I have traveled to Australia, I have traveled to UK, Dubai, whatnot, then my possibility of visa acceptance will be high. It is, well, sure, if you have traveled to the US, if you have a valid US visitor visa on your passport, that definitely acts as a plus point. But other than that, they do not really take inference from your previous visits of those many countries and imply that onto your Canadian visit visa application, right? Every application is being looked upon independently. Every application is looked upon from the perspective whether you're satisfying section 179 of the IRPR or not. Right? So if you have a travel history, it's good. If you do not have a travel history, you have no reason to worry. A travel history cannot be and is not the sole reason for an officer to give you the visa or to deny the visa. It's being looked at into in totality with respect to all the other aspects of your application as well. So travel history on your own is not a requirement for your either grant or a rejection of your visit visa to Canada. So my point was to apply for a visit visa and then make a visit here in Canada. And while you do that application process, while you do that tourist visa application process, if you do not have it already, make sure you get your IELTS, make sure you get your ECA done, because then that would then give you an edge over the other candidates, because you could tell the employer that, I have my IELTS, I have my ECA, and I believe I'm a genuine candidate. I'm not really begging for a job offer. I'm not really asking for a job offer. But what I'm telling you is that what I'm requesting you is that I see there is a position in your in your website. Why can't you just interview me? And I could tell you is that after I get the job offer, I'm not really going to worry you. I'm not really going to bother you with the post job offer paperwork. I could either do it on my own, or I have a licensed representative that will take care of everything. That really enhances the confidence of the employer. If an employer, no matter how reliable resource you are, no matter how long you have been working for your current employment, no matter how frequently you have changed job or whatever other factors you talk about, as I mentioned, in Canada, the subjective factors play very important roles. These subjective factors meaning how do you talk, how do you behave, your body language. All those things are super important here in Canada, and those are the aspects that are being considered while an employer selects or rejects an applicant. Obviously, it is your skill set. Obviously, it is your language ability and everything else, but I cannot stress on the soft skills part enough. For example, if you talk about my case, I came from India. I worked my life here in India before I moving to Canada. And when I start working for an employer here in Canada, I found it so very different, because the work atmosphere would be very, very different. The way you interact with the client would be very, very different. There are things that you should do in Canada, you're expected to do in Canada. There are things which you should definitely not do here in Canada. So you see, what I'm trying to make is that all those things are being evaluated, would be evaluated by the employers once you're able to meet them face to face, which is why I'm not really in a big favor of you sending your CVs from outside Canada, because in that case the employers probably do not know, or in are not in a position to know how good of a resource you are. Because one thing is your skill set. Sure, it's nothing is taken for granted. Your qualifications are nothing for granted. But hey, the very important aspect, as I have said, is that your along with your all the qualification and experience, your qualitative factors, the subjective factors that being evaluated are your soft skills, which is something that an employer cannot see if you're sending your CVs from abroad. So which is why if you want to have my opinion into it, my general suggestion into it, for 99% of the for the 99% of the candidates, I would advise to apply for a visit visa, or if you have a visit visa, make a trip to Canada. And make sure you have your IELTS and ECA ready. Make sure you have a strong LinkedIn profile. This is super important. Even the kind of photograph that you put on your LinkedIn makes it look either professional or unprofessional, right? So make sure you do everything. And then after coming to Canada, as I mentioned in the video, go to these Atlantic provinces, and in the meanwhile, start looking into the job database of those employers, start looking into the website and research about those employers, right? Just do not send an email saying that I will be a very dedicated employee of you. I get a lot of those emails from all over the world quite regularly, where people tell me that they want to work for an employer, and they will ask me to forward their CV to those employers because they will be dedicated resorts to them. Well, it's a matter of equality. That is something that we have to keep in mind. If an employer needs the resources, need a resource, you need an employment. So it's an equal situation. So we have to stop using the terms as, sir, this is my humble request. Sir, I would really appreciate if you can deploy me. I will be thankful to you for the rest of my life. I will be grateful to you. Those are something, those are the terms, those are the languages that are not really being appreciated in a way to professional way here in Canada, which is why I say that, even if you're sending your CVs from outside Canada, it may make sense to do a little bit of research as to how an email is being drafted here in Canada. And it's a democracy, it's a society of equality. So sure, if you get a job offer, then you will be getting your permanent residency, and your family's life would change along with you based on that one single job offer. But at the same time, I know from my personal experience, because I've been living here for a while, I have been to all those Atlantic provinces on my own, and I know that it's not really easy for those employers to get a resource get a quality desired resource if they need it, right? So it's a win-win situation. So we have to believe in that equality. Our language should talk about equality. And so if even if you're sending your emails from outside Canada, make sure you write those emails in a way that is being appreciated here in Canada. Make sure your CV is being changed into the Canadian standard. And I have a video on how a Canadian CV looks like. A Canadian CV does not have any flab. A Canadian CV does not talk about whether your hobby is cooking or trekking or hiking. A Canadian CV talks about, it's a very sleek, simple kind of a CV, talks about your name, your phone number, your email address, and talks about your experience, and followed by your qualification. And even the experience have to be written in a way that is being appreciated, that is being understandable by the employer. If you're a technical person working for a technical IT help desk, for example, you have to understand that your CV would probably be reviewed by an HR professional or a recruitment professional who may not understand all those technical languages. So there is a fine balance between what you should write, what you should not write in the CV, and in a way that is being understandable and appreciable by the front desk, I would say the gatekeepers, before your CV is being actually forwarded to the HR. And I'm really not discouraging you to send CVs from abroad. To be honest, I know people that have received a job offer from outside Canada, and I could give you a live example. That client that I had represented, was from Pakistan. The person had just +2 from Pakistan, had been driving truck in Middle East. I don't remember exactly the country. He wasn't a graduate. The employer liked him so much that he gave him a job offer, and the person got it done all from outside Canada. He did not have a Canadian visa, but he did not have a Canadian visa rejection as well, which is good. He did not have a US visa. He hardly had any travel history, apart from Pakistan to Middle East and back. But he's now in Canada, and we are working on his permanent residency application, right? So it works, but it works in a very few cases. Now, it works for positions or the profiles such as truck driver, such as cook, such as a butcher, all those things. Again, all those things could come under the other technical aspects, of whether you have your diploma, or whether you have whether you're being qualified under Canadian trade class or not. That's a different thing. But I know of people that have received the job offer in the IT. I know people that have received their job offer in the procurement field, all from outside Canada, because they have done it well. But if you ask me, if you want me to give a segregation between the possibility of success of you coming to Canada and meeting the employers and doing things rightly, vis-a-vis you are doing things from outside Canada, either with the help of a professional or on your own, because I also have a service on my website that talks about the employer reach out program, and wherein I do everything for my client. But I will still tell you is that you coming to Canada and meeting those employers face to face, vis-a-vis me or anybody else that is being sending CVs for clients while the client is outside Canada, makes a lot of difference, right? So a lot of times I get emails, including one in the morning today, wherein people ask to proceed with my service of the employer reach out program for AIPP and APP. And I tell them quite honestly that I will do my best for you, but I should be honest and to let you know that you may not even get a single response by the end of 3 months, or it could also be possible that you get a lot of response from the employer. It is really, really unpredictable, because it also depends on how your profile is and how the employer likes, your CV. But if I have to segregate, I will say I will stress 70% on you coming to Canada, meeting those employers face to face, and telling them in person, sitting in a face to face meeting. Nowadays, the economy is opening up, the country is opening up, the offices are going back to their usual structure. So it's probably a good time for you to come and meet those employers and tell them that, what, you need quality resource, and I can prove myself in the interview. I'm not asking for a job offer just right away, right? I'm asking you to take my interview. It will not take maybe a few days for you in the whole process. And I could guarantee you that after I get the job offer, I will not bother you. I could assure you that I'm not going to bother you with the post job offer paperwork. I have a licensed representative that will take care of everything. And I know the process. I know that you do not have to go through the LMIA process. I know that I could apply for my PR while I, like based on the job offer directly. I know that I could apply for a work permit in the meanwhile if you would like me to join as soon as possible. So there are all the tips and tricks that you can use, in that process. But as I've said, 70% of the time, I would say, if you ask me the probability of success, which is a very common question that I receive for most of my clients. So irrespective of your profile, to be honest, unless and until yours is a very super technical profile, that is not probably available in Canada. An example could be if you're a teacher, right? If you're a kindergarten teacher or a high school teacher back home, irrespective of where you're coming from, teaching is a regulated profession here in Canada. So you will not get a job as a teacher, right? For example, if you are a plumber, you will not get a job directly as a plumber unless and until you do your certification here in Canada, or you challenge the certification in a way that is being done here in Canada. So there are all those different processes for that, right? But for majority, I could tell you is that if you look at the designated employers list, the number of employers are so very high is that there will be employers from literally every single field. Obviously, the number of fishing companies would be high as compared to number of IT companies. Obviously, we are talking about Atlantic Canada, right? But yet you will get opportunities in the IT space as well. I'm just talking about IT as an example. It could be procurement, it could be supply chain, it could be anything, right? So in terms of provinces, I think I said it in one of my videos before, is that Newfoundland and Labrador is a province that you do not want to touch. Labrador is extreme anyways, but Newfoundland also, you will not be able to survive for the most part, or you may be able to survive. Probably you will not get a desired job offer in the Newfoundland part. But barring that, people concentrate a lot on Nova Scotia, Halifax, and Sydney, and all those areas. My personal favorite, as I said, is New Brunswick. As I said it, because of its cost of living, because of its quality of life, because of its still reasonably priced real estate here in Canada, though the market is like crazy. And there are a lot of employers. There are a lot of IT companies. There are a lot of startups in St. John, Moncton, Fredericton area. So if you do things properly, New Brunswick, followed by Nova Scotia, followed by PEI. PEI is sort of a province that is more dependent on the farming. So if you have anything of that sort, it is called the potato capital of Canada. I'm not really sure if you're aware of. There's a lot of potatoes that is grown in PEI. So if your background is something to do with farming, is something to do with agriculture research, that's the place that you should be targeting on. My suggestion generally will be really to focus on province to province rather than sending emails to everybody. Focus on a province. You may want to settle in Nova Scotia, for example. Settle, just look into that province, look into the designated employers list. Reach out those employers, may not be through email, but through LinkedIn, maybe. Find out who the decision maker is. Finding out the decision maker, in my opinion, is a very important thing. You may not really want to reach out to the recruitment consultant or the HR lady, right? Who may not even understand what you're talking about. You may want to, if it's a small company, maybe less than 50 employees or something, you may want to reach out to the owner directly. I have suggested one of my clients to reach out to the owner of the company, and obviously nobody is going to respond to you in one email, most likely. So you have to obviously keep on sending emails in a desired frequency that does not make them feel that you are intervening their personal life, or you're being too pushy. Again, as I said, there are do's and don'ts, but reach out to those owners directly, because they know their business, they know the criticality of their operation without a skilled resource, right? So instead of you going through an HR person or a gatekeeper, if you will, as compared to if you're going through if you're talking to the owner directly, that makes a lot of difference. Sometimes also you have to understand is that, and that is also quite important, the employers do not really understand how the settlement plan works. The employer do not understand, obviously, because they are the employers, they're not the immigration professionals. They do not understand how the immigration is going to work after you get a job offer. So their obvious question will be, well, you do not have a legal status in Canada. You can contact me once you're in Canada, or contact me once you get a legal status in Canada. So you have to tell them that, hey, this is a program for me to give me a legal status in Canada. If you do not know what an Atlantic immigration program is, I could have you chat with my licensed representative. A lot of clients of mine have actually done that. I spoke to a couple of employers and make them understand that, yeah, this is a doable process. And frankly speaking, you will not incur even $1, right? The client is paying me for everything that I will be doing, and I could do for my client. I could do it for you as well. So the only thing or only aspect in that whole process that you have to take care of is to interview my client in a positive way, is to interview him genuinely and see if he's a genuine candidate. in your opinion, you can proceed with the job offer, and I could assure you that I will take care of the rest. So this also happens. So if you get an employer that tells you is that, well, I'm not really confident on this process, I do not want to hire a foreigner, you have to tell them, in a way, again, it is being told here in Canada, is that it's my responsibility. Leave it on me. You do not have to worry about everything. At the max, what is going to happen, right? At the max, you will give me a job offer. It will not be converted into a permanent residency or a work permit. That situation would not come, but that is the loss that you're going through. Or maybe a few weeks time, right? If you think I'm a good candidate, why can't you invest just a few weeks or days on me? So again, you do not want to be way too pushy, but you should be pushy to the extent that conveys your feeling, that conveys your I would say, inclination to work for that particular employer and research about that employer, right? You do not send one single email, copy paste, copy paste, copy paste to everybody. You will not probably get a response. It has to be customized. It has to, the email has to make sense to the employer to make them believe, to make them hire a foreigner if you're doing this from outside Canada. If you're coming here and doing it, obviously, it does make sense to send different emails, or maybe you want to call them, get a Canadian number. Maybe you want to call them, right? That sometimes makes the process faster. It depends on the employer to employer, their organization structure. Usually the clients that I work with, before before the clients do anything, I tell them this needs to be done, this should not be done, because I know by looking at the company website, by looking at where these guys are, either in like Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, or PEI, I know them. I know for a fact how they are going to respond, because I know, by now I understand the psychology. I have worked in so many cases. I understand the psychology. I have worked for employers before founding this company. So I know how this works here in Canada. I would be able to help you on that front professionally if such a requirement arises. But there are lots of things that you could do rather than just sending CVs. Make those connections, start building those connections. And in the first invite that you send somebody over LinkedIn, just do not ask for a job offer. Make the connection, build a rapport, and then talk about the job offer when you think the situation comes. Go through their website. If you think that they have some relevant job openings for you, talk to them, and also ask for references, right? If somebody likes you, somebody likes your profile here in Canada, but the person may not have a job offer readily available, or maybe a position readily available. Sorry, I mean, nobody has a job offer readily available, but for a position readily available, ask for the references. Like, references play a lot of significant role here in Canada, right? A lot of hirings happen due to references. So references do play a very important role. It's a good idea to build references. It's a good idea to build professional connections here in Canada while you're outside Canada. So if you're coming here on a visit visa, once you start applying, or once you're applying for the visit visa, once you've applied for the visit visa, it may be a good idea to build up those connections to make sure that the employer, at least some decision maker or influencers within the organization, know about your profile. And then once you are here, you can obviously tell them that, hey, I'm here, I see the position still open, you mind to interview me? I could guarantee you that I will not bother you with the post job offer paperwork. So this is all about AIPP or APP now. You could apply for your PR directly on the basis of your job offer, or you can apply for your work permit on the basis of your job offer. It really depends on case to case. I have to see your case specific things to be able to guide you. There are some things that may work on somebody else's case that may not work in your case. So those kind of things are obviously very, very case specific. But yeah, you could apply for your PR, you could apply for your work permit. And I could tell you is that you do not really have to go to Ontario, or come to Ontario, or go to Vancouver or Alberta. There are better places even to live in Canada, which are way cheaper. Yes, it is cold, right? In New Brunswick is cold, Nova Scotia is cold, and PEI is cold. The degree of coldness may vary. The degree of cold may vary, but it's not unlivable. They are all prepared to tackle winter. Yes, sure, the winter, the East experiences a little bit long winter as compared to what we get here in South. Particularly in Southern Ontario, but that doesn't mean those places are not unlivable, right? In the summer, it's beautiful there, and most importantly, your family will be safe. Your child will have a good future. Your wife will be able to work if she's working, or if like whatever you guys want to do. You want to create your own business. Like, it's a free world, it's a free society. People are extremely nice there. Do not be scared by the weather. A lot of people tell me that it's very cold. Yeah, it's cold, but I also came from a different country, which is not cold. But hey, I've been living here, right? And today, at the time I'm making this video, it's still like -5, -6, and it's we are still in March, and there will be cold here in southern Ontario till about April, right? The days will start becoming more warmer from May. So this is it, right? Do not be afraid by cold. Do not have to be sticking around with Ontario or BC or whatever. You have to ensure that this is any province through which you get your PR will be the best province. This is how I request my clients to think about it, because you know what? Once you get your PR, after you get your PR, you are free to move from one province to the another. Sometimes people get confused with the contract that you sign with the province, where you say that you intended to stay in that province, but hey, your intention and your deed are very two different things. You may intend to marry somebody whom you do not end up marrying, because your life may have changed, right? So life changes, situation changes, or your intention could change as well. So do not worry about that. You could come to Ontario, you could go to BC the next day if you do not like to stay in New Brunswick, for example. But I could tell you is that those are the provinces that give you PR in a way more easier manner as compared to what Ontario would give you or what BC would give you. And AIPP is a program, and now that it's a permanent program with a higher intake, is a program to be focused on, because if you are not able to score a significant score in express entry, well, nowadays there is no express entry draw anyways, but your chances of PNP is also very low. And you should not really score more than, like, if you score more than 300 in CRS, you should not really depend on Alberta a lot, thinking that, well, Alberta invites people with more than 300 CRS, you will get your nomination as well. Mind you, is that you always have to diversify your bucket. So all my clients, I always tell them to not to focus on AIPP way too much. It's a good idea to apply for a visit visa. It's a good idea to apply for AIPP, meaning the job offer. It's a good idea to come here and meet the employer, but it is also a good idea to apply to other provincial nomination program as well, because the more the merrier. I could tell you is that other provincial nominee programs processing time will be way higher as compared to AIPP, because AIPP is a job offer driven APP, sorry, is a job offer driven program. And I would say the load, the workload that a case officer in Nova Scotia would be comparatively lower than what a person would have in Ontario. So the decision making time will be faster, the processing time will be faster for AIPP, and this is definitely a path that you can consider for the permanent residency of you and your family. Nothing is foolproof, nothing is like guaranteed. It's all about trying, but also make sure it's not about really trying for the sake of trying. You have to try in a manner that is being done here in Canada, and that really makes or breaks. If you need professional assistance with the process, let me know. I believe this is what I have wanted to talk about. I see a couple of questions here. Mr. Karthi Raja, 38 age. I am working in Dubai for 10 years. My mechanical engineer, AIPP program possible? Yes, possible. Why not possible? Definitely possible. There are clients from Dubai. I just told you about a case even without looking at your question, but that person was a truck driver from Pakistan, and he was working in one of the Middle Eastern countries. I'm not really sure it's Dubai or any other country. The person has got a job offer because the person did it correctly. And the one thing that I really appreciate about that client was that he was really, really judicious in following my advice. This is very important. I'm not saying that you have to follow my advice blindly, but I also request my clients to ask me questions. Just keep on asking me questions. I don't mind if you ask me a lot of questions. And obviously, if you're a client, it's my responsibility to answer all your questions. And even if you come for a consultation, I encourage my clients to keep on asking questions till the time that 1 hour break is over. I just finished a consultation, before coming for this audio, and I have another one at 11 o'clock. By the way, yeah, I will have to finish this call early. I have another one at 11 o'clock. So yeah, but the point is, it's possible, right? The point is, it's definitely possible. But as I said, Mr. Raja, you have to really do things in a manner that is being done in Canada. Yeah. I do here watching you live from Ghana, Accra. Awesome. Incidentally, I consulted a client from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. this morning. That person is also from Ghana for a visit visa refusal application. Excellent client. The visa got refused. I have to work with the reapplication. Thank you. You guys are awesome. Mr. Anjum is saying, how can get job offer from AIPP province? Give us some tips. I believe I have given you some tips, and you'll probably have found it useful. Mr. Amin is saying it's really hard to find jobs in Canada for regulated jobs like architects, and yeah, it is true. It is absolutely true. But for regulated occupations, for example, let's talk about my occupation, which is immigration, consultant. No matter how hard I have worked in my home country, I in Canada, I had to go back to school. I had to score in CLB 9 in CELPIP or IELTS, like whatever. I had to take an exam. I had to go back to school. I have to clear 10 modules. I have to clear their exam. Then I had to take IELTS. Then I had to clear an entry to practice exam. And then I had to provide, I don't know how many documents, including my fingerprints and whatnot. And after that, I got my license because it's a regulated profession. It's not easy, as you have rightly said, and it's a very valid point that you have brought in. But at the same time, for regulated professions such as architects, there are ways to do things. There could be part of Canadian skilled trade. If you are an architect, obviously architecture is a very broad field. But since I've assisted quite a few clients, previously, I know there are multiple facets on architecture. You may not get a job as an architecture and as an architect here in Canada. But what about having a job here as an assistant, right? Or what about, along with trying for a job offer, what about applying to other provinces that need architect? I could tell you from my experience, Mr. Or Miss Amin, is that the number of architects in Canada are quite in demand. There are not a lot of them. I could tell you from my experience, right? Mr. Fidel, do you have any idea how many weeks processing for endorsement certification, please? Well, it's a very good question. I could tell you last to last week, I had a call with the Nova Scotia immigration. I called their office to ask for exact question, and they said that there is no such processing time as of right now. I'm talking about 2 weeks back, because the program will be permanent and then the processing time would be vary. But I could tell you it should not take more than 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks for a well-made application. It should not take more than 2 to 3 weeks. And frankly speaking, Fidel, these guys work in a very slow pace. And they still give us excuses for COVID. I told them that, what, now the COVID is over, right? Frankly speaking, the COVID is over. We have to fasten processing up. And then they said, once the program becomes a permanent program, they will have a more realistic idea. But from my experience, I could tell you, should not take more than 3 weeks. 3 weeks on a hard side, because endorsement certification is just a template wherein they have to fill in your details, right? After, obviously, you submit your settlement plan and everything, and it really depends. There are some consultants, there are some lawyers that do the things very, very I would say they provide everything from day one, so that the officers do not come back and ask questions. Those who do not provide all those documents, and then the back and forth takes a lot of time. So I'm sure you have provided a good application. It should not take more than 2 to 3 weeks. But I would also request you to check back on me maybe next week, because I'm planning to call them next Wednesday for one of my client, and I will ask this question exactly, because I'm planning to submit one document, one application, but I'm planning to submit it by the end of next week. So before I submit, I will have a call with them. So kindly, if you do not mind, just check back with me after the 16th, but before the 18th maybe of March. I'm not really sure what you're saying here. Whom today? Okay. Understood. Pharmacist job requires license. Can we enter as a retail manager? Well, pharmacist is a very serious kind of a licensing. It's way more serious than architect. Retail manager, sure you can, if you are able to justify that you will be a retail manager. Because hey, the retail manager, we have to understand is that what you have been doing in your home country as a retail manager. Because the definition of retail manager here in Canada is very different. If you walk into a supermarket, the retail manager does a lot of stuff. I know of stores where the retail manager does the cleaning as well, along with maintaining inventory, along with maintaining customers and everything. Because nowadays, and that too after COVID, people are stressing more and more on automated checkouts and things like that, right? So it really depends. But pharmaceutical and a pharmacist, not impossible, it's not possible, because that's like a serious licensing thing here. All the Shoppers Drug Mart, and they have the pharmacist and they have to undergo the licensing. But retail manager, surely possible. Depends on what you have been doing, depends on your CV, and how really this is actually a good point that you brought in, because this is important for me to tell you, is that you may be doing things, something, for example, retail manager, say for example in India or Dubai, But as we know, the definition of retail manager is a little bit different here in Canada. Are you able to align your job duty or responsibility in line with how it really happens in Canada? If yes, then the possibility of picking up the CV would be very high. But obviously, coming to Canada, meeting those employer would be way more logical. All right, I have a call scheduled in the next couple of minutes, so I have to end this webinar here. If you have any questions, just write it to me here. I will try to answer in the next 2-3 minutes. Okay, Mr. Mohan Singh, you are expressing good opportunities. I will contact you soon. I think AIPP will assist me to settle there, and you will be the right individual to make it possible. I'm not sure, Mr. Singh. Are you somebody from Delhi that I have consulted last month or something? Are you that Mr. Mohan Singh, or maybe I'm mistaken something? If you are the person, I could tell you is that you are one of the most well organized well organized client that I have consulted. You have been super organized, and I really like to profile. If you are the person, I remember, and if I remember, you have been, oh, perfect. Then I know then why you are working. I do not want to say it to the world, but you have been working in that employer with that employer, which is a government entity. I do not want to name it, for 7 and 8 years, I believe, if I remember it correctly. We discussed it, right? The backup plans as well, should AIPB doesn't work. But yeah, we'll be very glad to assist you. You have been one of the most organized clients that I have consulted with. I'm saying organized in terms of consultations because I sent the retainer agreement. He's somebody that had forwarded me the signed retainer agreement, was on the call on time, had forwarded me everything, was a perfect CV, very well organized person. So I really appreciate when somebody comes prepared with the call. Because I do my homework, you know it, right? I have asked for all your documents um, beforehand to do my study. I spend time before talking to the client. Yes, you are paying for that 1 hour, but I prefer to prefer to invest time on my own to make sure I understand the profile, I understand your everything around you, to be able to guide you in that duration of 1 hour. And yeah, we'll be very happy to help. All right, guys, I will leave you there. I hope you enjoy your rest of the day. I will have one consultations now, one consultation in the afternoon. I will focus on that, and I will try to talk about misrepresentation in my next webinar. You call it webinar, you call it live session, you call it YouTube videos, doesn't really matter. The objective is to try to tell you how things really work in Canada. The objective of these forums are not really give you to legal advice, because it is impossible to give legal advice without you coming to me with all your documents and me listening to your story, make my own notes, and then talking to you and then letting you know what you should do. But my objective is that I see a lot of YouTube videos these days, and it's mostly misinformation that's being spreading around the world, because people with absolutely no knowledge of immigration, they are not licensed. People are talking about life in Canada is fine, but the same people talking about Canadian immigration and telling people what to do, what not to do, is a very dangerous thing. Because as I've said, if something has worked for person A, that doesn't mean it is going to work for person B, right? So it's very important for you to know what you're doing. Doesn't matter if you work with a professional or you do it on your own. Regardless, it's very important for you to know what you're doing. And my purpose of these videos is to give you overview, is to let you know the do's and don'ts, so in generally, so that you could do things on your own. The next webinar, I want to talk about misrepresentation, because there are a lot of misrepresentations that are happening in the study permit application, in the visit visa applications, in the Manitoba PNP. Knowingly or unknowingly, or lack of knowledge, or whatever you call it, a misrepresentation is a misrepresentation, which can possibly lead to 5 years ban. My objective is not to scare you, but you should know why should you not misrepresent yourself in that application. And even if you forget something, writing in that application would potentially be considered as misrepresentation. So that's the thing that you should be aware of. So I'm going to talk about that. I will let you know when I'm going to come live, so that you can ask me questions. I really appreciate all of you asking questions. I really appreciate all of you watching video. Till then, take care and bye now.